The United States Army faces an increasingly sophisticated and pervasive cyber threat emanating from the People's Republic of China. This digital menace is no longer a theoretical concern confined to intelligence briefings, but a palpable reality with the potential to significantly undermine American military capabilities. Chinese cyber actors are actively working to gain access to, and potentially disrupt, the very systems the U.S. military relies upon for global operations and rapid deployment. This presents a formidable challenge to national security, demanding immediate and sustained attention from defense planners and policymakers alike. The ability to project power and respond to global crises hinges on secure and resilient infrastructure, now a prime target in this new era of digital confrontation. The core of this concern lies in China's demonstrated capability and intent to leverage cyberspace as an asymmetric warfare domain. By targeting critical infrastructure, both military and civilian, China aims to create strategic vulnerabilities that could be exploited during a crisis or conflict. The U.S. intelligence community has repeatedly warned that Beijing views cyber operations as a crucial tool to deter U.S. intervention and degrade its military effectiveness. This strategic approach underscores a long-term vision where digital superiority translates directly into geopolitical advantage, thereby altering the traditional calculus of military power and international relations in profound ways that are still being fully understood and addressed. Understanding the scope of this threat requires acknowledging its multifaceted nature. It encompasses not only direct attacks on military networks, but also the exploitation of vulnerabilities within the civilian critical infrastructure essential for military mobilization and sustainment. This includes transportation networks, energy grids, and communication systems, many of which are privately owned and may not adhere to stringent military-grade cybersecurity standards. The interconnectedness of these systems means that a successful intrusion in one area can have cascading effects, potentially crippling the Army's ability to deploy forces and equipment efficiently when needed most urgently. The implications for U.S. military readiness are profound and far-reaching. A compromised logistical chain or a disrupted command and control system could delay or even prevent the timely deployment of troops and resources, thereby blunting the nation's capacity to respond to international emergencies. The U.S. Army, alongside other branches of the armed forces, must therefore adapt to this evolving threat landscape by enhancing its cyber defenses, fostering greater resilience, and developing innovative strategies to counter China's sophisticated cyber operations. This is not merely a technical challenge, but a strategic imperative for maintaining military superiority in the 21st century. China's engagement in cyber activities against the United States is not a recent phenomenon. Rather, it represents a long-standing campaign that has evolved significantly over the years. Initially, these operations were primarily focused on cyber espionage, with Chinese actors systematically targeting U.S. government agencies, defense contractors, and private corporations to illicitly acquire sensitive information, intellectual property, and technological secrets. This widespread theft provided Beijing with valuable insights into American military capabilities, technological advancements, and strategic planning, effectively accelerating its own military modernization and economic development programs at a considerable cost to U.S. interests and national security. However, the nature and intent of Chinese cyber operations have demonstrably shifted over time. While espionage undoubtedly continues, there is mounting evidence suggesting a more aggressive posture, one that includes preparations for disruptive and destructive cyber attacks. U.S. intelligence assessments, including the 2024 Annual Threat Report, explicitly warn that China is actively considering offensive cyber operations against U.S. critical infrastructure and military assets, particularly in the event of an impending conflict. This marks a dangerous escalation, moving beyond information gathering to activities designed to actively impede U.S. military action and sow chaos during periods of heightened tension. The Trump administration, for instance, began its tenure amidst revelations of significant Chinese cyber intrusions targeting various sectors of U.S. critical infrastructure, highlighting the growing audacity and capability of these state-sponsored groups. This period underscored the realization that China was not merely content with stealing secrets but was also actively mapping out and potentially gaining persistent access to systems crucial for the functioning of American society and its ability to project military power. The persistence and sophistication of these efforts indicated a strategic, long-term commitment by Beijing to leverage cyberspace as a key domain for achieving its national objectives. This evolution from espionage to potential sabotage reflects China's broader military strategy, which emphasizes informatized warfare, a concept that integrates cyber operations seamlessly with traditional military actions. By pre-positioning malicious code or gaining covert access to critical systems, Chinese actors aim to create options for disrupting U.S. decision-making processes, interfering with military deployments, and even causing societal panic. This proactive and increasingly bold approach necessitates a fundamental rethinking of U.S. defensive strategies, demanding greater vigilance and a more comprehensive approach to securing national assets against these advanced, persistent threats. Among the various state-sponsored hacking groups attributed to China, Volt Typhoon has emerged as a particularly concerning entity due to its sophisticated tactics and strategic targeting. Over the past year, intelligence agencies have revealed that Volt Typhoon has successfully infiltrated the networks of numerous U.S. critical infrastructure providers, including those in the transportation, energy, and water sectors. This group's modus operandi involves gaining and maintaining persistent covert access to these systems, often by exploiting vulnerabilities in common networking equipment and using living-off-the-land techniques, which involve using legitimate system tools to evade detection, making their activities exceptionally difficult to identify and mitigate. Volt Typhoon's activities are not believed to be solely for intelligence gathering. Instead, they strongly suggest operational preparation for disruptive or destructive attacks. The group has been observed pre-positioning malicious payloads within compromised networks, essentially laying digital groundwork that could be activated to cripple essential services during a geopolitical crisis or military conflict. This capability to disrupt critical functions at a chosen moment represents a significant threat to U.S. national security and the operational readiness of the U.S. Army, which relies heavily on this civilian infrastructure for support during mobilization and deployment phases of any significant military operation. Beyond Volt Typhoon, other Chinese hacking groups also contribute to the broad cyber threat landscape facing the United States. For example, Flax Typhoon has been identified for its operations involving the hijacking of vulnerable internet-facing devices, such as cameras and routers, often creating extensive botnets that can be used for various nefarious purposes, including distributed denial-of-service attacks or further network intrusions. Another group, Salt Typhoon, has reportedly penetrated deep into U.S. telecommunications networks, potentially gaining access to sensitive communications data and infrastructure controls, which could severely impact both civilian and military communication capabilities. The coordinated efforts of these diverse groups, likely operating under the direction or with the acquiescence of Chinese state authorities, paint a picture of a comprehensive and multi-pronged cyber strategy. Each group may have its specific targets and methodologies, but collectively, they contribute to China's overarching goals of intelligence acquisition, technological advancement through theft, and the ability to project cyber power. Understanding the specific tactics, techniques, and procedures of groups like Volt Typhoon, Flax Typhoon, and Salt Typhoon is crucial for developing effective countermeasures and strengthening the defenses of U.S. critical systems against these persistent and evolving threats. The critical infrastructure of the United States, encompassing vital sectors such as transportation, energy, and water systems, exhibits significant vulnerabilities that Chinese cyber actors are keen to exploit. A substantial portion of this infrastructure is civilian-owned and operated, and historically, its design prioritized reliability and operational efficiency over robust cybersecurity. This legacy approach has resulted in many systems lacking modern security features, making them relatively soft targets for sophisticated state-sponsored hackers. The interconnected nature of these systems further exacerbates the risk, as a breach in one area can potentially cascade and impact multiple dependent services, creating widespread disruption. The U.S. military, including the Army, is heavily reliant on this civilian infrastructure, particularly during mobilization and deployment. For instance, the movement of troops and equipment across the country and overseas depends significantly on commercial rail networks, ports, and airports. If these transportation systems are compromised or rendered inoperable by a cyber attack, it could severely hamper the military's ability to respond swiftly and effectively to a crisis. The U.S. intelligence community's 2024 annual threat assessment highlighted concerns that China would specifically target such infrastructure to interfere with the deployment of U.S. forces in the event of an imminent conflict. Reports, such as those from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, have indicated that the current cybersecurity posture of critical air, rail, and maritime infrastructure underpinning U.S. military mobility is insufficient. This necessitates substantial investment from both government and private sector entities, along with improved public-private collaboration to uplift security standards across the board. Many of the industrial control systems and operational technology that manage these critical functions were not designed with internet connectivity in mind, yet are increasingly being connected, often without adequate security measures, creating new attack vectors for adversaries to exploit. Furthermore, the information gathered by compromising critical infrastructure provides Beijing with more than just disruptive capabilities. It allows for extensive intelligence collection. By monitoring the movement of goods and military equipment through compromised transportation or logistics systems, China can surreptitiously gather valuable data on U.S. military preparedness, deployment patterns, and supply chain dependencies. This intelligence can then be used to refine their own strategic planning and identify further vulnerabilities, creating a cycle of increasing risk that the U.S. must proactively work to break through comprehensive security enhancements and vigilance. Section 5. Paralyzing Power. The devastating impact of cyber sabotage on military mobilization. The potential consequences of successful Chinese cyber attacks on U.S. critical infrastructure, particularly concerning military mobilization, are profoundly alarming. A direct military engagement would necessitate the rapid and efficient movement of vast numbers of troops, vast quantities of equipment, and extensive logistical support. Retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery has stated that major troop movements rely on civilian transportation systems for as much as 95 to 98% of their logistics. This overwhelming dependence means that any disruption to these civilian networks, be it rail, maritime ports, or air traffic control, could translate directly into critical delays and impediments for military deployment, especially in a scenario requiring swift action in the Indo-Pacific region. Chinese military strategists are acutely aware of this dependency and view it as a significant vulnerability. The U.S. intelligence community has repeatedly warned that Beijing would likely consider aggressive cyber operations against these civilian systems to specifically interfere with the deployment of U.S. forces and deter further U.S. military action in a conflict scenario. By targeting transportation hubs, energy supplies powering these hubs, or communication systems coordinating them, China could create bottlenecks, confusion, and significant logistical nightmares, effectively slowing down or even crippling the U.S. response at a crucial juncture, thereby shifting the initial operational tempo in their favor. The Cyberspace Solarium Commission 2.0 report further underscored this threat, highlighting the potential for the People's Liberation Army to target civilian infrastructure specifically to hinder U.S. military mobilization. The report also noted that the Pentagon's current efforts to secure this vital supporting infrastructure are not yet sufficient and often lack adequate coordination with broader federal cybersecurity initiatives. This lack of cohesive defense across public and private sectors creates seams that sophisticated adversaries like China are adept at exploiting, turning interdependent strengths into shared vulnerabilities if not properly managed and secured with unified effort. Beyond the immediate impact on troop and equipment movement, cyber attacks on critical infrastructure could also aim to induce societal panic and disrupt governmental decision-making processes. Widespread power outages, disruptions to water supplies, or failures in transportation systems can create significant public unrest and distract leadership, further complicating an effective military response. The psychological impact of such attacks, demonstrating an adversary's ability to reach deep within U.S. borders and affect civilian lives, could also play into China's strategy of deterrence and coercion, making the stakes incredibly high for ensuring the resilience of these foundational systems. Section 6. Beyond civilian targets, direct cyber threats to U.S. military assets and operations. While the vulnerability of civilian infrastructure supporting military operations is a major concern, direct cyber threats to U.S. military assets, bases, and operational systems also demand urgent attention. U.S. military installations, numbering around 800 in over 70 countries, rely on a complex web of public and private utilities for essential services like power, water, and communications. These operational technology systems, controlling everything from HVAC and airfield lighting to access security and fuel systems, were often engineered primarily for reliability and efficiency, with cybersecurity considerations being a secondary, if considered at all, aspect during their initial design and implementation phases. This historical focus on reliability over security has rendered many of these critical base infrastructure systems as high-value targets for sophisticated nation-state hackers, including those sponsored by China. A successful cyber attack could disrupt base operations, compromise sensitive information, or even endanger personnel. For instance, compromising power grids supplying a base could halt operations, while infiltrating access control systems could lead to physical security breaches. The Department of Defense has recognized these risks and is taking steps to secure its internal infrastructure through its Defense Critical Infrastructure Program, which aims to identify, label, and mitigate risks to assets whose disruption would seriously impact DoD missions. A particularly critical military asset vulnerable to cyber threats is the Global Positioning System, which is owned and operated by the Pentagon. GPS is indispensable not only for military navigation, targeting, and timing, but also for a vast array of civilian sectors, including transportation, finance, and the electricity grid. However, certain GPS frequencies, like the widely used L1 signal, lack modern encryption and robust anti-jamming features, making them susceptible to spoofing and jamming attacks. Even the L2 frequency, which improves accuracy for military applications, is not immune to certain types of interference, posing a significant operational risk. The transition to more secure GPS signals, such as the L5 frequency designed for safety-of-life applications with better resistance to interference, has been slow due to delays in satellite launches and the deployment of the GPS Next Generation Operational Control System. Consequently, many existing military and civilian receivers are not yet equipped to utilize these more resilient signals. This lingering vulnerability in a system so fundamental to modern military operations presents an attractive target for an adversary like China, seeking to degrade U.S. technological advantages and disrupt coordinated military actions during a conflict. Misidentification of cyber-induced disruptions as mere system malfunctions can also occur, hindering the collection of forensic data crucial for attribution and future defense. Section 7. The Human Element. Addressing the cybersecurity skill gap in military ranks. A significant challenge in confronting the cyber threat from China lies in the existing capability gap in cybersecurity training and expertise within the U.S. military, particularly among personnel responsible for maintaining critical infrastructure. Many military engineers and technicians who operate and sustain the power, water, communication, and industrial control systems on military bases, and in support of deployed forces, lack specific, advanced cybersecurity training tailored to these operational technology environments. Their traditional training has, quite understandably, focused on the physical maintenance and operational reliability of these systems, often without a deep understanding of the cyber vulnerabilities inherent within them or how to defend against state-sponsored cyber attacks. This skills gap means that the individuals on the front lines of infrastructure management may not always recognize the signs of a sophisticated cyber intrusion, potentially misattributing system disruptions to routine malfunctions or technical failures. Such misidentification can lead to the loss of crucial forensic data that would otherwise be invaluable for understanding the attacker's methods, attributing the attack, and strengthening defenses against future incidents. Furthermore, there often exist organizational silos between the DoD's cyber incident response teams, which specialize in network defense, and the engineers who manage the physical critical systems, hindering effective collaboration when it comes to securing industrial control systems and responding to OT-specific cyber events. To address this critical shortfall, experts and defense analysts have proposed several measures. For instance, institutions like Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, which provides extensive training for military personnel in maintaining critical infrastructure, currently lack a comprehensive basic cybersecurity curriculum integrated into these engineering programs. Expanding the curriculum at such training centers to include cybersecurity-driven engineering principles is essential for Army combat engineers, Navy Seabees, Air Force Red Horse units, and public works personnel. These individuals need to be equipped not just to build and maintain, but also to secure the infrastructure they manage against advanced cyber threats. Establishing a joint service schoolhouse or center of excellence, perhaps at a location like Fort Leonard Wood, could create a hub for developing and disseminating expertise in OT cybersecurity across all branches of the military. Such an initiative would foster a common understanding of the threats and best practices, promote inter-service collaboration, and ensure that military engineers are adequately trained to work alongside network defenders to secure the industrial control systems vital to military operations. Investing in human capital through robust and continuous cybersecurity training is as crucial as investing in technological solutions to effectively counter the evolving cyber threats posed by adversaries like China. Section 8. Bolstering the bulwarks, key recommendations for enhancing U.S. cyber defenses. In response to the escalating cyber threats from China, numerous reports and expert bodies, including the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and the Cyberspace Solarium Commission 2.0, have put forth a range of concrete recommendations aimed at strengthening U.S. cybersecurity. A primary area of focus is the need to harmonize cybersecurity regulations for transportation systems, which are critical for military mobilization. Currently, differing standards and compliance requirements across various modes of transport can create inconsistencies and exploitable gaps, which a unified regulatory framework could help to mitigate, ensuring a baseline level of security across these essential services. Furthermore, there is a strong call for Congress to allocate increased funding for cybersecurity grant programs, specifically targeting transportation-critical infrastructure. Many operators, especially smaller entities within the vast logistics network, may lack the resources to implement robust security measures independently. Financial assistance, coupled with clear guidance on best practices and trusted vendor lists, can significantly uplift the overall security posture of these vital civilian-owned assets. The Department of Defense has also been urged to review and enhance interagency coordination for the protection of defense-critical infrastructure, ensuring that its efforts are well integrated with broader federal cybersecurity initiatives and strategies. A key recommendation involves the DoD conducting regular and realistic exercises with private sector partners, simulating cyber attacks on critical infrastructure during military mobilization scenarios. These exercises would help identify vulnerabilities, test response plans, and improve collaboration between military and civilian entities, ensuring a more coordinated and effective defense in a real-world crisis. Additionally, addressing the vulnerabilities in the global positioning system is paramount. This includes urging the White House to revise GPS governance structures, accelerate the transition to the more secure GPS-3 satellites and the L5 frequency, and actively explore and invest in resilient terrestrial positioning, navigation, and timing systems as backups or alternatives to space-based GPS. The April 2024 National Security Memorandum on Critical Infrastructure Security and Resilience has already tasked sector risk management agencies with incorporating defense-critical infrastructure into their responsibilities, which is a positive step towards better integration. Specific recommendations have also been made for the maritime, national airspace, and freight rail sectors, emphasizing improved cybersecurity practices, enhanced collaboration between regulatory bodies like the FAA and TSA, auditing U.S. Coast Guard requirements for port security, and conducting thorough interagency supply chain risk assessments to identify and mitigate potential threats embedded within critical components and software. Section 9. Securing the Digital Frontier, the Enduring Imperative of Cyber Resilience for National Security. The challenge posed by China's sophisticated cyber capabilities is not a fleeting issue, but an enduring feature of the contemporary geopolitical landscape, demanding sustained commitment and strategic adaptation from the United States. Unmasking and countering the dragon's digital threat is fundamentally about safeguarding national security and ensuring the U.S. military, particularly the Army, can operate effectively and decisively whenever and wherever required. The potential for China to disrupt military operations, cripple critical infrastructure, and sow societal confusion through cyber underscores the urgent need for a comprehensive and proactive defense strategy that anticipates and mitigates these evolving risks. Achieving true cyber resilience requires a multifaceted approach that extends beyond technological solutions. It necessitates significant investment in cybersecurity training for military and civilian personnel, fostering a culture of security awareness at all levels. It also demands robust public-private partnerships, recognizing that much of the critical infrastructure underpinning national power is owned and operated by civilian entities. Seamless collaboration, information sharing, and coordinated response planning between government agencies and the private sector are indispensable for creating a united front against state-sponsored cyber adversaries. The ability to quickly detect, respond to, and recover from cyber incidents is paramount. The recommendations put forth by various expert bodies, from harmonizing regulations and increasing funding for infrastructure security to enhancing training programs and accelerating the adoption of more secure technologies like advanced GPS, provide a clear roadmap. However, implementing these measures effectively will require political will, sustained investment, and a recognition that cybersecurity is not merely an IT issue, but a core component of national defense and economic stability. The U.S. Army, along with the entire defense establishment, must continuously evolve its doctrines, capabilities, and partnerships to stay ahead of the cyber threat curve. Ultimately, securing the digital frontier against the ambitions of nations like China is an ongoing endeavor. It is about building layers of defense, fostering innovation in cybersecurity, and cultivating a workforce equipped with the skills to navigate this complex domain. By prioritizing cyber resilience, the United States can better protect its critical assets, ensure the operational readiness of its military forces, and maintain its strategic advantages in an increasingly interconnected and contested world. The dragon's shadow in cyberspace is long, but with concerted effort and strategic foresight, its potential to inflict harm can be significantly diminished, securing a more stable future.